Hello and good day. Welcome to our video channel, God's Promises. And today's video will be Book of Exodus 2. Let's get started now. Verse 1. The chapter begins with the introduction of a Levite man who marries a Levite woman, and they have a son. The Levites were the priestly tribe of Israel, and their son's birth would later play a significant role in the story of Exodus. Verse 2. The woman gives birth to a son, and she sees that he is a fine child. So she hides him for 3 months. This is because Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, had ordered that all Hebrew baby boys be killed. Verse 3. When the woman can no longer hide the child, she makes a basket of papyrus reeds and places the baby in it. She then places the basket among the reeds at the edge of the Nile River. Verse 4. The baby's sister stands at a distance to see what will happen to him. Verse 5. Pharaoh's daughter comes to bathe in the Nile River and sees the basket among the reeds. She sends her female slave to retrieve it. Verse 6. When Pharaoh's daughter opens the basket and sees the baby, she feels compassion for him because he is crying. She realizes that the baby is Hebrew. Verse 7. The baby's sister, who had been watching from a distance, offers to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for Pharaoh's daughter. Verse 8. Pharaoh's daughter agrees, and the baby's sister goes to fetch the child's mother. Verse 9. Pharaoh's daughter tells the mother to take the child and nurse him, and she will pay her for it. Verse 10. When the child is weaned, the mother brings him back to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopts him as her son and names him Moses, which means, drawn out, because she had drawn him out of the water. Verse 11. The story then jumps ahead to when Moses is grown, and he goes out to see his people, the Hebrews. Verse 12. Moses sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and he looks around to make sure no one is watching before he kills the Egyptian and hides his body in the sand. Verse 13. The next day, Moses sees 2 Hebrews fighting, and he tries to intervene. One of the Hebrews asks if Moses intends to kill him as he did the Egyptian. Verse 14. Moses realizes that his secret is out, and he becomes afraid that Pharaoh will find out and kill him. Verse 15. When Pharaoh hears about what Moses has done, he seeks to kill him, so Moses flees to the land of Midian. Verse 16. In Midian, Moses meets a priest named Jethro and marries one of his daughters, Zipporah. Verse 17. Moses then becomes a shepherd for Jethro's flock. Verse 18. One day, while tending the flock, Moses comes to a well where he meets the 7 daughters of Jethro. Verse 19. Some shepherds try to drive the daughters away from the well, but Moses defends them. Verse 20. When the daughters return home, they tell their father what had happened, and he invites Moses to stay with them. Verse 21. Moses stays with Jethro and tends his flock for many years. Verse 22. During this time, the Israelites continue to suffer under the oppression of the Egyptians. Verse 23. God hears the cry of his people and remembers his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Verse 24. God sees the Israelites suffering and decides to rescue them from slavery in Egypt. Verse 25. But before God acts to rescue the Israelites from slavery, he chooses Moses to be his instrument for this mission. The stage is now set for the dramatic events that will follow in the coming chapters of Exodus. Meaning and symbolism. The story of Exodus 2 is a powerful illustration of God's providential care over his people. Despite Pharaoh's decree to kill all Hebrew baby boys, God intervenes and saves Moses through the compassion of Pharaoh's daughter. This sets the stage for the role that Moses will play in the liberation of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. Moses is chosen by God to be the deliverer of his people and to lead them to freedom. The story also highlights the theme of obedience to God's calling. Despite being raised as an Egyptian prince, Moses identifies with his Hebrew heritage and shows compassion for his people. When he kills the Egyptian taskmaster, he is taking matters into his own hands and acting on his own initiative. However, he later learns that God's timing and plan are perfect, as he is called to serve God's purposes in a more profound way. Additionally, the story foreshadows the symbolism of baptism. The basket that Moses is placed in represents the Ark of Salvation, and the water of the Nile River represents the waters of baptism. Moses is drawn out of the water, symbolizing his rebirth and salvation. The story of Exodus 2 teaches us several essential lessons. Firstly, it demonstrates that God is in control of our lives, and He can use our circumstances for His purposes. Even in the midst of great adversity, God can bring good out of it. We should trust Him, even when things seem difficult or confusing. Secondly, we learn that obedience to God's calling is essential. God has a unique plan for each of us, and we should be willing to follow His lead, even if it means stepping out of our comfort zone or taking a risk. Lastly, the story highlights the importance of compassion and caring for others. Moses' mother risked her life to save her son, and Pharaoh's daughter showed compassion for the baby she found in the basket. As Christians, we are called to show the same level of compassion and love for others, especially those who are vulnerable or marginalized. In conclusion, the story of Exodus 2 provides a rich tapestry of meaning and symbolism, as well as practical lessons for our daily lives. It reminds us that God is in control, that obedience to His calling is essential, and that we should show compassion and love for others. Thank you for visiting us today. Please share with us your favorite Bible verse below in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help our channel grow. Looking forward to see you back here for our next video. Always take good care.